So the number one way that you can have inflation be less effective to you is, this might come as a shocker, is to retire now instead of later. Live your best life abroad with Frank and Angie in South America, Europe, North America. Okay, how not to worry about $4 gas or $6 gas. Here in Europe it's at least $6. Well, there's plenty to worry about here in Italy. The price of gas, $1.60 per liter. Here we see a nifty little graph about the prices of gas depending on the year. You can see that in 2005 it was still a couple of bucks. It went over the $2 mark in 2005. So between 2005 and 2011, we were going through all of that with this big vehicle that was not gas efficient at all. We lived through it and didn't worry about gas. My circumstances were such that I created the circumstances that allowed me to survive and thrive in that environment. And so I'm talking about taking you from where you are right now to where you could be. And that's what we're talking about, not worrying about the gas prices. So this here it says right now, it's in Portland, Oregon, for example, the gas right now is $3.89, and yet Irving, Texas, it's $2.77. So the price of the gas was higher than the gas prices in many parts of the nation right now. And so while gas prices are rising, the average price per gallon of regular gas is still below $2.50 at about 80% of stations. We had a much higher price of gas back then when we were in the States than a lot of people have now, right now, in the States 8 years later. So how not to worry? Now, we had ways that we didn't worry about the gas when we were there, but we're also going to talk about how not to worry about it whether you are in Europe or whether you're in the States. Price of gas, inflation in general. You know, we could talk about getting a more efficient vehicle. We could talk about how to drive better so your gas efficiency is better, and those are all good things to do. But the more meatier solutions that I'm going to discuss are going to go a little further than that. And that's what we're going to talk about in this video. So the number one way that you can, foundationally speaking, have inflation be less effective to you is, this might come as a shocker, but, and don't object yet, hear me out, is to retire now instead of later. I know what you're saying, I know all the arguments, I've heard all the math and all that, but I'm going to talk about that. Now, a lot of you are almost there at early retirement, 62, but you're going to wait till you're 70 to retire. Here's another way to look at it. I know what you're thinking about, you get the extra money and all that, but another way to look at it is, for one, you would not be commuting. Number one, big. If you're not commuting, guess what happens to your consumption, vehicle consumption and your gasoline consumption? That's right, it goes way down. If you're in that commute situation now, you wake up in the morning, you go to work, you drive to work, you work all day, or maybe you drive around for work, and maybe then you have to drive, or you have to drive back home. So when we do this year in, year out, day in, day out, then it's just becomes something we don't even think about, not realizing that a different picture would look like this, that you wouldn't be commuting and you'd be consuming a lot less. So when you take out your ledger and do the math, what do you get? When you add the extra money that you would get by working an extra 7 years, make sure that you add in all the extra vehicle expense and gasoline expense that it's going to cost you. In other words, total it, 8 years worth of commuting, gasoline, vehicle expense, whatever you've got, interest expenses, okay? And then another aspect of it to think about is this. You're doing a real good job at work and you're working towards a goal to add more money to your retirement later, but at the same time, because you're doing that, you're not really able to spend the time or to put in the effort to increase your skills, acquire the skills that it takes to actually live like a king now, in addition to what you wouldn't be spending on all that commuting. and adding that back into your budget. It's the ability to be more effective in how you apply your money, your capital, in such a way that you are, let's just call it, live like a king, living well, buying whatever you need and more, and yet still having money left over. You know, call it financial freedom, call it what you want, but you're not worrying about money. So that's one thing, is retiring now. The other thing, number two, would be, if you're not really there yet, you're not at the age group, meaning you're not there at the age group, to retire now. Then another consideration would be to revert back to a one-income household. You know, this would give one spouse the time and ability to learn how to work more effectively for your own household. Think about this. One thing is, you're dependent on two incomes, and neither one of you has the time to acquire the skills and put into practice strategies that could make your budget or your finances more effective. And we've never paid more than $300 for 3 or 4 bedroom houses, furnished and unfurnished.
More notes on how we were able to live on $1,500 in the States. Even with higher transportation costs there, with gas at $3, even with higher utility costs, we were real smart at bargain hunting. All of our food, clothing, and any variable expenses were extremely low.
Here's what I want to say to you guys. This was for a family of 5, I have to tell you, in North America on $1,500 or less. I just want you to know that I was on 3 acres and I had a house with a pool for that price. Now you might say, wow, that sounds really low for North America. And you'd be right. You could live a life of abundance. You could have a lot of fun. You would not be this picture of this frugal person that doesn't have anything and is just just oppressed and just doesn't have anything. You would be this person with just overflowing abundance. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. Let me show you the house I used to live in. Another thing you would learn is the coping skills. If you're both working and one of you unexpectedly gets laid off, now it's more of a emergency, it's a tragedy. You weren't able to spend any time learning the skills that you needed to be able to cope with such a thing. But if you do it on your own terms and you do it on your own timeline and you plan for it, meaning right now, doing it right now, not in 8 years or 10 years or whatever. In that way, you would actually be making your household stronger, because you would actually have the skills and you would be able to cope better with some kind of a calamity, plus all the benefits that come from having less stress of having 2 working spouses out of the home.
I've had the blessing of being able to stay home, and I've really enjoyed being with my children, my sons, while they grew up and everything. It's just the neatest thing to be able to see every single moment of the stages of their growth.
It's something that stays with you even afterwards. It's something that you experienced, and might even build a kind of a more of a bond, do you think?
It sure does. I think that it does. I think that parents are a lot closer to their children, and children with the parents when, especially the mother, when she's home. And the other blessing is I don't live a very stressful life. I don't have to get up and deal with other people, except for my family.
You don't have a boss breathing down your neck, or
like that.
deadlines to meet, other than
I think that's a
self-imposed.
really big blessing. And I'm always telling people and how blessed I am not to have to go out and work.
Yeah.
I would never have it
at a
any
job
other way.
Or,
Yeah, I don't have to go out and work at a job. That's right.
Or you're surrounded by
It's not
people.
like I don't do anything in the home.
Surrounded
believe
by
me.
people you normally wouldn't associate with, perhaps, and maybe even have some associates or even bosses. Just the idea of having a boss is
I think
another subject.
it's very important if husbands and wives can work together and figure out a way, especially if you have small children that are still at home and everything, to find and figure out a way for her to stay home and find ways that she can be industrious at home.
We're not talking about not working. We're talking about instead of putting your complete day, your whole day, all those hours into building someone else's business, you can spend that time building the business of your household. That's what we're talking about here. In so doing, this is so foundational, then you could not have to worry by having at least one spouse acquire the skills, the techniques, and the methods to become much more efficient and living very well and having a lot more money left over at the end of the month. And so whether you just retire early or whether one of you just puts their effort into building your own household instead of one working spouse instead of two, whichever way you consider doing it, remember that this will make you much stronger in the long run. Having acquired the skills and the knowledge will give you confidence that you can be more resilient and that you can do it. You can do it, and you can do it right now. And if you would like some help with some of these ideas that we discuss in these videos, take a look at the links below and book a call with us to explore whether or not we're a good fit to work together, so we can put some of these ideas in motion in your life right now. Thanks for listening and have a nice day.